For those of you who are unaware, there are many tropes in Fire Emblem. We have incest, amnesia, and whatever the hell this is. But there's one trope that's more relevant to the franchise than anything that I've previously mentioned, and that is the dead parents trope. Parents and parental figures dying is something that's very common in video games, but Fire Emblem takes this to a whole nother level. You'll get introduced to your mother or father very early on in the story, only for them to get killed 5 minutes later. The game then expects us to feel bad for a character who pretty much dies on the same day that you meet them. Now, I'm not saying that characters with little screen time can't be impactful or thought-provoking, but it's the fact that your parents die so early on in these games, before we could even grow an attachment to them, sorta makes these quote-unquote sad cutscenes downright comical. And this isn't just an issue with the writing in modern Fire Emblem games, since in the literal first 5 minutes of playing Sacred Stones, you see the main character's dad about to get killed by the invading enemy forces. Although in that scene, the game wasn't trying to make you feel upset, but rather it was attempting to portray to the player just how dire the situation that our protagonists are currently in. Now, of course, not every dad in Fire Emblem dies, but it happens so often that I don't even consider it a spoiler anymore. In fact, finding out that the parental figure doesn't die is more of an actual plot twist at this point. Now you may begin to question, why does Intelligent Systems bother spamming this early parent death in so many Fire Emblem games, if everyone sees it coming anyway? Well, it's quite simple. Parents are something that most of you guys probably have at home, so you'll likely be able to somewhat understand and sympathize with what the main character is going through. However, the issue is that whether or not you're related by blood to the main protagonist doesn't actually matter, since despite the whole prevalence of avatars in modern Fire Emblem, you're not actually the main character in this game, and so these characters are still ultimately just strangers to us, and thus you can only feel a certain amount of sadness once you kill off a character prematurely like this. And even if you do kill off a parent character midway through the story, rather than just right at the beginning, it still won't matter much if you haven't actually grown attached to the character, and it just makes the story that the game is trying to tell seem sort of forced. Now there's a very simple fix to this issue of frequent parent death in Fire Emblem, and it's called making these characters have an actual character behind them that goes beyond just their blood relation. My favourite example of this is Grail in Path of Radiance. He's Ike's father who dies less than 10 chapters in the game, but is still commonly agreed to be the best dad in Fire Emblem. His death has a very strong impact on the game, as on top of 2 of your better units leaving you, it also sets up Ike's motivation for the rest of the game quite nicely. He also is seen in a pretty favourable light through the game's cutscenes, and they don't just kill him off to a random nobody who dies a few chapters later, but rather, he dies to the Black Knight, who's a very prevalent antagonist in Path of Radiance. And it's also worth noting that Grail doesn't just get left behind by the plot and forgotten after he dies, but he actually has some lore behind him which makes him a fairly interesting character even after his purpose of dying to the Black Knight is fulfilled. But by the current pattern that Fire Emblem games are following, I highly doubt that we will see a parent in one of these games who actually makes it past the first 5 hours of gameplay. But that's enough being a dead horse for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.